Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with these nerds.
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is Ted.
And today we discuss the concept of dark heroes in your game.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Today we're going to talk about the idea, should heroes fear the dark, or be from the dark, or something along those lines.
We're talking about anti-heroes, dark heroes, and let's face it, a lot of people are drawn to this type of character, and the PHB, whether you realize it or not, it's actually sprinkled with a lot of dark options.
You definitely have those players that are like, I'm so goth!
Yeah, so the question is, how do we use those characters without making it an evil campaign or something?
Right, or do they even belong in the game? You know, is another question entirely. So let's go over what are the options that we already have for building dark heroes in 5e.
Well, first and foremost, while it doesn't have to be, I think the warlock as a class
screams
like dark hero, anti-hero to me. It's like,
villain.
Yes, I've sold my soul for power. Yeah, that to me already sparks the threshold.
The Fae could have just made a mistake and said yes to the wrong deal.
Well, there's definitely different ways to go about that as well. I guess we'll circle back to that too.
And then if you get into some of the other classes, some of the archetypes really, have that mark on it. You've got Assassin, you've got the Way of the Shadow, and you've got the Oath of Vengeance. And Oath of Vengeance is the most popular paladin, archetype.
It is, and it's the least, friendly paladin type. Definitely not a hugger. Not a hugger at all.
And let's not end there, because we have some options in our DMG as well. You've got your Oathbreaker Paladin, and you've got the Death Domain.
Okay, so the DMG, at least with that, that's the purview of the Dungeon Master. Of course, you could offer these options in your game to your players, but essentially, I feel like they're there to build villains, possibly.
They could definitely be that, but you can make villains that aren't classes. So, they're not listed as, here's some abilities to add to your NPCs. It's got it by level. So, to me, that
screams character.
Screams character.
If you beg hard enough, your GM may let you.
So, I think we're all in agreement, though. We like playing games about heroes.
Yes.
So, is there a place for this grittier, darker hero in our games?
I think there is. It depends upon, how you handle it, both as a player and as a GM. I don't want anyone in my game going around killing people without just cause. To me, that's not ever going to be heroic. That's not going to be something that I, as the DM, want to roll dice for. It's not enjoyable.
I'm right there with you as well. So what are some scenarios where we can do this and still stay in our comfort zone as far as GMs and players?
All right, well, I played a campaign a while ago, and the character was mostly a rogue, and he was an assassin. Well, his backstory was, there was insert evil bad guy, typical superhero kind of level of his parents were murdered, blah, blah, blah. He's out for vengeance. So he was, he was darker. He was darker, he was brooding, but he was still out to do good. But it led him down the road of, he wants to be able to go enact his vengeance. He wants to go kill the person that was involved, and in order to do so, he's an assassin. Now, he's not a hired assassin. He's not labeling himself as such. But when it came down to, let me pick the best character class or archetype to be able to manage this, the assassin was I do the most damage. So for him, he was the best archer he could be, and in doing so, that mechanically labeled him as the assassin.
So you've reflavored the assassin archetype, so it's not really an assassin, but he was more of an archer.
Yes.
The sniper, sharpshooter, what have you.
Yes.
And then you have, for the whole warlock class, you could be a warlock that's kind of conflicted over their choices. So I could go with either, you made a deal with the devil and you got the bad end of the deal, a bad Fey pact, or something speaking to you from beyond the void, and you're not really sure what it is or what it's going, like what it wants. But you've gained power from those deals, and you're conflicted over whether or not to do exactly what the patron wants or go your own way, and you're not really sure if going your own way is what the patron wants. So is it bad to go your own way? So it's kind of like this kind of, you have that big question mark over motivation for my character. Is it actually leading me down a bad path or not?
Well, with Warlock, you literally could have been tricked into it.
Exactly.
You know, you're typically dealing with beings that are bigger than the monsters in the monster manual. Power-wise, they're so strong, they have the ability to carve off a small section of their power and offer it to you for some task that it wants to have done at some point in time.
Yeah, you're most likely not their first minion.
So, like, it's like, well, at some point in time, I'll call upon you.
There's definitely some examples where, if you look at maybe Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, who wanted to save his dad, right? So he trades, he makes a deal with the devil, and trades to have something to save his dad. Obviously, you know, it doesn't work out in the end for him anyway, but he's already struck the bargain, struck the deal. And sometimes the actual, like, warlock powers could be like a side effect. Like, that's not the thing you actually trade it for. You trade it for something else, but they're like, oh no, you know, now we made a deal. You're my minion. You're gonna need to be souped up a little bit. Here you go. You know, it doesn't always have to be, you know, you just wanted more power or you didn't want to die, but it very well could be. You could have literally just made one bad decision along the way, and now you're kind of trapped. So that could make you a conflicted or definitely someone who might be questionable at times because you have this other allegiance that you're beholden to. I believe Ryan played in 4th edition played a Star Pact Warlock, and he just kind of played him like he was kind of crazy and heard voices. You know, so like that is another way of, like, maybe you were somebody who was a decent person, but you delved too deep in the wrong place, and you unlocked mysteries that you shouldn't have.
And that would go really well with the Great Old One as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Star Pack Warlock is kind of like,
yeah.
I feel like comes from there.
Well, I was looking at the 5th edition options.
Absolutely.
You know, now if you're looking at stuff out of the DMG, the Oathbreaker, I think, is something that you could have been forced down a path because of someone else's actions, or, you know, you made the wrong choice. And it's something that you want to dabble in. And this gives you the option of, well, I broke my oath and I want to fix it. So you can go dark for a little while and then get redemption, which many heroes want to be able to do. And I think having rules for that is cool.
Yeah, a redemption story is definitely cool, and that is one of the times that I think I'd be cool and allow for the Oathbreaker. So also, going away from the DMG and back into the player's handbook, we have the Way of the Shadow Monks, right? So essentially what we're saying is you're a ninja. Now, that doesn't have to be dark and gritty, but it just depends on how it gets played. So that one is that one starts off neutral, and then it goes to, well, how are you playing it?
Now, we actually talked, earlier that, one aspect of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles could be Way of the Shadow, and they are clearly very good characters. So, if they wanted to do the whole stealth route in the shadows and what have you, clearly that's one way of doing it. But the hand from Marvel could very easily be Way of the Shadow Monk as well. So
it's all about how you use your ninjutsu.
How do you spin that?
So the Way of the Shadow is one that I feel like it could be fall into the dark years, especially if you play it even different than that, and you go with, you're actually worshiping the darkness kind of, or is it just that you've been highly trained in subterfuge and stealth?
Yeah, is something you kind of like tainted by the shadow, and that's why you can go through it.
Of our list, I feel like the Way of the Shadow is the one that is kind of the weakest as far as being a dark hero, because it could go either way. Now, we also have from the Wizard that we didn't even mention, and that is Wizard tradition of Necromancy. Which I know, like, man, I fight with people on this one all the time. It's like, I'm not evil. I just play with dead things. Most cultures are going to frown upon this.
It's just breaking a whole bunch of taboos. That's all.
All right. So first and foremost, you have to look at what is the magic involved. And I believe your thought pattern on necromancy is different than other people. You believe that if you animate a dead thing, you're trapping that soul there, where some people say, well, the lower level spells that raise a skeleton or a zombie, it's literally just the magic of your spell that makes it work, and the soul has gone off to wherever it's gone off. So depending upon how you want to look at that, definitely is going to denote the level of evil involved.
For storyline purposes, it's really cool to have the person trapped, because then you have a heroic reason to untrap them.
Yes.
Now, I want to say the earlier editions of the game completely support me in this. We're in 5th, but, 1st through 3rd, you were using negative energy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're just completely using negative energy. Now, in 5th edition, they don't really talk about that so much. You have radiant and necrotic, but a lot of the necromancy stuff uses necrotic energy, and, if you go into the definition of necrotic, it's not nice. That's for sure. All of that aside, you're still desecrating someone's corpse,
which is a taboo in many nations.
Yeah, most societies, most religions, most people, for that matter, just aren't going to want you playing with their remains.
There is definitely that, and that's why I don't think you see very many necromancers in our games.
Yeah, in our games, or even really, how often do you see heroic necromancers in novels, for that matter?
That is true. Necromancy definitely has a bad rap,
and it's just easier to be the villain for certain things.
Now
necromancy is definitely one of them.
Now I feel like I have to make a necromancer that's a hero, and just have to avoid the raising of the dead.
Well, and that's what I feel like. If you were to play a necromancer that's not all the reasons that people want to play necromancers, if you want to play a good one, they don't actually do those things, right? They would be more trying to help people move on, help the souls pass on. Maybe they do some speaking with dead, but yeah, I feel like the really cool stuff. Yeah, they're not going to be doing that. Maybe wielding necrotic energy as a weapon. I don't know. It just seems like a bad thing all the way around. Let the fights in the comments begin.
I'm just gonna say I have plans to do a non-evil necromancer, and he still raises dead things, but that's just the way he views it. He doesn't ask moral questions about stuff because he's crazy.
So, what about the Death Domain cleric? Is this something that's just as hideous as the necromancer wizard, or is this something where it's like, all right, is this more akin to, well, I'm the last you see before you cross that threshold. I'm the guardian of death, not the purveyor.
What first qualifying question? Do they get animate or create undead as domain spells?
You ask, does the Death Domain cleric fall in this same vein? A death cleric does not have to, but this one does. Oh yeah, because of some of the specific abilities, they really are about harming people, killing people, and animating dead. To me, it's not really good. But if it was more like, hey, I'm a shepherd, I worship a god of death that isn't really about killing people, but is about seeing people on to the next afterlife, to the next world. All things expire, and I actually feel like those clerics, those deities, would hate undead. They're cheating death.
That is true.
And then you have the concept of if you're more of a nature cleric or something, and you have life and death and kind of the cycles of the world, and you could just kind of fixate or focus more on the death side than the life side as part of your character's natural development.
But I think there's definitely ways to, even though they have access to things that deal out death, and they do have, as a domain spell, access to animate dead, they're not necessarily being forced to use it, and you can still kind of go with that. Well, I like some of these abilities. I want to be this, guardian of death, and I'm gonna make this work. But it does take work. It does make a stretch, and that's why it's in the DMG, not the player's handbook.
But I feel like that one's fairly easy to fix. Like change the channel divinity maybe, and change up the one spell, their first level ability, and it will definitely work. So that brings us to the last one,
and that's Oath of Vengeance Paladin. And as I said, this is the most popular paladin that people play because people like to dish out damage. Now, when we get into, we're playing D&D, but I think so often a lot of people, we look up as nerds to heroes. And superheroes are vigilantes. They're going out and doing, in some cases, what the cops don't do in these fictional verses. So, technically, as a Paladin of Vengeance, you could just be that. I'm outside the law, I'm taking things into my own hands, but I'm doing it for the proper causes.
Well, you could be definitely in the scope of the law. You could be Judge Dredd.
Well, oh, absolutely. And we actually...
Judge, jury, and executioner.
We actually, D&Di's Judge Dredd, didn't we?
It's a good possibility.
And I think, we actually labeled him as a Paladin of Vengeance.
So we've D&D as a lot of people. Characteristically wise, there's characters like Batman, who could kind of fall in that vein. Punisher could fall in that vein. Like their outlook and their attitudes. But there could also, I think this is one of the easier ones to go. You kind of have a bit of a dark bent to you, but you could absolutely be a hero.
So, like, if you want to take this and, make this be really heroic, you could have the face. I'm going to go out there. I'm a Paladin of Vengeance, and I'm going to mow down whoever I have to for justice, for what's going on. And then you could have, in a very TV-esque, we'll scroll to later, where he's doing this mission because he has to, but he doesn't actually like the killing. So you've got the remorseful side, and he's like praying to his deity and crying and, really getting into the powerful emotions behind it all, and continuing to do the mission is hard for him. But yet, he still every day picks up that weapon.
You don't actually have to kill an enemy, though.
Depending upon what the task is at hand.
Go ahead. You could also be a Paladin of the Oath of Vengeance and be after something that's actually evil. And then that's like the easy end. It's like, oh, sorry, I'm doing these things, and we're fighting these evils, so I'm all good.
I just murder witches. All day, all the time. Just witches are dead.
Yep. Just because, my village was destroyed by some terrible thing. Controlled by a witch. There you go.
So, and there's actually other classes, too, that you could infuse with this kind of stuff, like the Eldritch Knight. You could literally say the Eldritch Knight gets his power from some other being. Almost like a warlock, if you wanted to. Because they have spells known. They're not really learning spells. They just have magic. You could do things like that. Also, I feel like Way of the Four Elements, you could kind of redefine how you're the Way of the Four Elements and where your gifts are coming from. If you wanted to make darker and grittier bents to these characters.
You could definitely take those and give them a little twist, a little spin. I mean, anything mechanically that's there, you can always re-flavor it in another way and have fun with it.
Well, even like Way of the Four Elements, there's not really much reflavoring you need to do. All you have to really do is create an order that reveres the elements and is evil, right? So, like, I don't know, there was this thing, temple? This temple or something.
Did they belong in a temple of elemental evil?
Right, and you could do something with that. But that being said, like, we wouldn't like that in our games, so why not have him a fallen disciple of this these dark powers? So there's always that. There's always the redemption story. There's the idea of a haunted hero where he's constantly, he's constantly being reminded of his past by different things, and maybe that's where the darkness comes, and he's always fighting against it. Or like your character who becomes the assassin in order to complete a specific mission, but at some point does he have to like have this retrospective looking at himself and what's going on around him and what he's becoming in order to do that.
Well, that campaign actually went to completion. We got to 18th or 20th level, and he did kill the creature that killed his parents and her pet dragon, and then I never really got to sit and reflect, because when the combat was over, the campaign was over.
Feel like you need to write an epilogue for it.
Yeah.
It can scroll for the credits.
So what do you guys think of anti-heroes, dark heroes? Is there enough options? Do you want us to talk some more about this? You know what to do. Continue the conversation down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can always tweet at Nerdarchy, #DarkHeroes.
You can check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.